Hi, I'm Jenn. I lost my voice when I landed in Vancouver 2 days ago. So when it goes away, this presentation is over. This is my first time speaking at a technical conference, and so I'm actually really, really nervous right now. Do the other speakers know how that feels? Like, I feel like my heart is going to jump out of my body right now. That's normal. Okay, I need to do something just to relax myself. Can you guys help me out with that?
Yes.
Okay, I need everybody to close their eyes, okay? Can everybody close their eyes so I can do something really quick? Okay, this feels really weird. No, I don't feel better. Okay, I need helpers. I need helpers to come up here and do something crazy for me.
What?
I need some helpers that are going to do some breakdance miming. Oh, yeah, Alan. Oh, my gosh. Can I have a round of applause for my mimers? Thank you, guys. Okay.
Can I open my eyes?
Yeah. Oh, you guys can... You can totally open your eyes now. Okay. So like I said, or like Alan said, I work at And Yet, but 2 years ago, before I worked at And Yet, I actually worked at the Department of Energy on the Hanford nuclear site, and it was my job. I was a lead technical writer and editor, and it was my job to bring together, I was on a team that brought together the major multiple contractors on the nuclear cleanup site. And we were trying to get them to collaborate on a single set of safety rules. That's where the site is. If you look just down, like the center, there's a little arrow that says Richland. That's where And Yet would be in like 90, or I'm really bad at math. This is like the 40s. So, okay. So I was working with the contractors, and I really enjoyed negotiating with all the different parties to bring the people to consensus. The team that I worked with eagerly anticipated the reward of our efforts, which was to bring a substantially safer work environment for all of the different workers on the Hanford site, which was a pretty vast employer if you live in the Tri-Cities, so I knew people within every stretch of my life that worked out there, and it was a really important job to me. So when I was fired, January 6, 2011, a number of feelings washed over me, but the one that confused me the most was relief. That was the best job I'd had in my life up to that point, and the work was fulfilling. I felt like I was doing something that mattered and made a difference. So why would I be relieved to be free of that? Do you guys know that famous David Foster Wallace commencement speech? It was going around on the internet a little while ago. Anyway, there's a part of that speech that's particularly fitting, and it goes like this. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" That was me. I was the young fish. I was so immersed in doing my job and doing it well that I didn't see how being ignorant to my environment there would inevitably drown me. Let me show you guys, though, what kept me from completely drowning. This is Mila. She's 5. She is my daughter. Her favorite subject in school is recess, and when she grows up, she wants to be a rock star or a leopard, as you can see. She's still kind of new here, and she's a mostly untainted human being, despite my efforts. And she's the reason that I do everything. Kids are really funny. I never saw myself as being a kid person or a mom, but I am now. And it's an eye-opening lesson to learn that you can't just give them all of the right things. You can't take them to just the right schools, give them all the right toys and tools, and then one day they just get into Harvard or Yale or spearhead a relief mission. Like most parents, I want the best things for my child. I want her to grow up to be smart and strong and kind and confident and secure with herself. I want her to grow up to be a good person. I've found that for you to grow a good person, you have to show them what a good person looks like, what a good person acts like, what a good person speaks like. And after I got fired from my job at Hanford, I realized I didn't know how to show her any of these things. Today, I'm not writing technical documents or editing them. I work at &Yet, like I've already said, which is a software company devoted to people and passion. People ask me what I do there, and I've learned that the best answer most often is a lot. But I'll back up to 2011 and tell you about a different set of expectations I had of a workplace, which was what they were at that time. I'd made these expectations based on what culture had already taught me about the workplace, what I had observed, and what I had experienced firsthand. And maybe some of you guys can identify with these today or in your past jobs. The workplace was a place where a boss traded you money for your time. If you were fortunate, you got to enjoy how you spent your time. Otherwise, you just counted it down. The workplace was not a place to be combined with most to all elements of one's personal life. This also includes, first and foremost, any talk of feelings or relationships. At a workplace, you have to behave like you're at a workplace. Can't be yourself. Let me also say that I had learned that the rules are different depending on whether you're male or female. And on top of that, my perceived set of workplace rules, I had the fact that I discovered that I'm a sexist working against me. I'm a sexist, actually. Let me clarify. I'm a recovering sexist now. If you don't understand how it is that a female can own a sexist attitude or view, let me help you out. Not to go too far back, but from the time I was very small up until quite recently, I saw a world that didn't value me in the same way that I knew I had value. That's me and my little cheesy smile. My female role models, they had it all. They had great jobs, great marriages, great kids, 3 to 4 close girlfriends that they got together with to have cocktails. They were amazing hostesses, knowledgeable nurses, accomplished household paperwork filler-outers. And they did all of this with perfect hair and a maybe it's Maybelline flawless face. I looked at myself and I looked at them and I thought, no way. So I looked to my male role models. They got to be receivers of all of the cool stuff that I saw females doing. And from my point of view, all they had to do was have a decent job and be there. And on most holidays, that meant getting to watch football and eat. So I looked at myself and I looked at them and I thought, yes, that's what I want. So I modeled my life that way, and I tried to assimilate to what I interpreted to be a man's lifestyle. And I looked down on these girly girls for trying to do it all and have it all, and I thought that they were usually trying to do this with the end goal of impressing a man. I know now that my sexist attitudes were formed out of insecurity and self-defense, fearing that I would never be good enough to be one of those have-it-all types. So I guess there's also a little bit of jealousy in there too. This self-protective barrier multiplied my ignorance exponentially to the potential harmful workplace situations that I experienced at Hanford because I didn't view myself as a target to begin with. More often than not during my work there, I found myself feeling uncomfortable, even if I was alone in my office or in the middle of a meeting with 20 to 30 other people. I was doing work that I loved, but I felt on edge doing it, and I had no idea why. I chalked it up to imposter syndrome or my lack of tenure on the site. A lot of my coworkers were 20 to 30 years older than me. They could be my parents or grandparents, so they knew a lot of what was going on. Do you guys know what imposter syndrome is, by the way? Okay, I see a lot of heads nodding. That's good. If not, it's the feeling that even though you have evidence all around you of your success or accomplishments or abilities, still feeling inside like you're a fraud or a phony. It's supposedly more common among women, although I would venture to say it's most common among people. Who doesn't feel like a phony sometimes? I totally do. Okay. So in writing my talk, I was feeling a little iffy when I got to this part, so I'm going to try to do a demo now. Forgive me. I know not what I do. Hello, can you guys hear me? My screen is cutting your faces off. There you are. I can't hear you. Hello, can you hear me? I can see myself on stage. This is really weird. Oh my gosh. Those are my teammates from And Yet. I just wanted to check in with you guys to see how I'm doing. That's pretty reassuring. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for the moral support. Oh, that's weird. There's my ear. Okay. How do I get out of this? I really don't know, Alan. Oh wait, it showed up at the bottom. No, I don't want to do that either. Oh, displays. You told me. Oh, crap. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Alan was a really good tutor. Did I break the internet? Okay. Yay! Thank you, Alan. Man, you're getting a workout today. Okay, back to feelings. Okay, so back to my confusion. I couldn't understand why I would get so angry just reading emails. Can anybody identify with that? Or why I felt like I would throw up or jump out of my skin when my male boss would go out of his way to physically touch me. But he never did it inappropriately, though, so I didn't understand what my problem was. I felt like, I know he's only trying to comfort me, so why do I feel like I have to hide from him? I felt like I'm living up to my workplace expectations 1, 2, and 3, and I'm doing work that I love and that matters, so why isn't this working? The answer is, I simply didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge to understand what was happening around me or to me. I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate with anyone about it either. What I couldn't see then was that I didn't feel safe at work, which is pretty ironic given the scope of my work, which was to create a substantially safer environment for all Hanford workers, myself included. I internalized my confusion about the situation, and I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I blamed myself for it. And for a while, after I was fired, I wasn't motivated to change. Honestly, I felt like if they just want to fire awesome people to prove a point, that's their prerogative. That place is screwed up, and it's not my problem. Because to go back through those experiences and examine the way that I felt in those situations meant that I would have to admit to myself that I didn't feel safe where I was working. And to me, that meant admitting that I was needy. And that's about the grossest feeling to have to admit to. I felt like I didn't want to look weak. It wasn't until I found myself living the good life, living in the place that I belonged, with the people I loved, doing the work that was mine, on purpose, and struggling with it. that I started on this path, which would lead me here to talk to you today. I hope I don't die. Some of you have probably seen this before. My teammates Adam Brault and Luke Carries have talked about this definition in presentations that they've done in the past. And I would totally encourage you to check both of those out for good life lessons. Luke's talk, in particular, at TriConf, struck a chord for me, and that he described a particular set of challenges that arise when you find yourself in an environment that allows you to bring your whole self to work, but discovering that you come up short. And that's exactly where I was at too. But the difference is, instead of getting fired for my confusion, someone encouraged me through it this time. So why is any of this important? I know you guys are thinking that. But I actually have a better question for you. How is it not? We stand today as some of the most talented and privileged members of society. As Jan Lenhart pointed out in his analogy, developers have actualized the goal of alchemists, in that you are able to create gold out of air. Nobody else has ever been able to do that. So how have we reached 2013 and not made focusing on the entirety of human beings and their diverse and varied abilities our goal? How have we not made this our baseline yet? How are we comfortable pointing to a model that dehumanizes us, workers, real people, and saying, yes, this is the one that I want? Well, for one, history tells us to. Work environments have long focused on encouraging rationality over emotionality. This emphasis on rationality emerged as an administrative paradigm, partly as a defense against the perceived dysfunction and pejorative connotations of emotion. And it's true that feelings are unpredictable, and they can be an uncomfortable thing, and that can make people uncomfortable. But what about the negative impacts of denying people to be themselves entirely at work? What about the impacts of denying children the ability to be themselves entirely at school? That's what we're teaching them. In her article, Can Emotional Intelligence Be Taught?, Jennifer Kahn profiles several American schools that have been educating young students on social emotional learning because they recognize that emotional skills are crucial to academic performance. She states in the article, so-called non-cognitive skills, attributes like self-restraint, persistence, and self-awareness, might actually be better predictors of a person's life trajectory than standard academic measures. A 2011 study using data collected on 17,000 British infants followed over 50 years of life found that a child's level of mental well-being correlated strongly with their future success. And doesn't this make sense to everybody? Similar studies have found that kids who develop these skills are not only more likely to do well at work, but also to have longer marriages, to suffer less from depression and anxiety, and some evidence shows that they will be physically healthier. Who doesn't want to be all of those things for themselves or for their children? Just from having some sort of framework for their mental well-being, their mental and emotional health, just from learning how to talk about it with other people. So how is this accomplished? Working towards an emotionally safe environment is a continual process. So these methods are a work in progress. But I'm going to share with you some of the ones that I've found have worked for me and have worked for us at Andia. I'm still learning to be better at this. My default is to not do this. But what I've found is that you shouldn't deny yourself what's really an opportunity to work through the intensity of your feelings as you get them out. We encourage venting at Andia. My advice in this area, though, would be to be cautious of the person that you're venting to. When I'm pissed off, my gut instinct is to go to the person that's going to tell me what I want to hear. Yes, that situation sucks, Jen. You totally deserve to be angry. Yes, I feel better, I think. No. What I really need to hear is perspective. And perspective kind of sucks, but it makes me smile because I can be so angry, fury of 1,000 blazing suns, I'm going on a witch hunt because this thing's terrible, and then perspective comes along and goes, nope. And then I just have to smile and feel like an idiot. But it's great. It's great. Because it gives me a greater vantage point for how to handle things when they happen the next time. There's a huge exception to this rule. If you're in a conflict with somebody, you need to work on getting the tools to deal with conflict. Don't go venting to everyone except for the person that you're in conflict with, because that's like spreading emotional napalm. Don't spread emotional napalm. I'm the worst at this. Wait, you guys are probably thinking of this. Not this fester. That's not the one that I mean. I'm also really bad at this, but I'm getting better. My lack of emotional know-how, up until recently, and still sometimes, will tell me that the way that I'm feeling is wrong, and I just need to get over it. Like, what would a better grown-up Jenn do? And for a long time, I let things fester. For 25 years, I let things fester. And as a skilled expert on repressing and festering, I'm here to tell you today, it doesn't work. Not at all. It might seem like it's working for a time, but those emotions that you're trying to just hide down or put away, I used to call it my box. I'll just put that in the box and I'll deal with it someday. It doesn't work. Those emotions will never go away. They'll fester like a boil or a fester or some other gross image that you don't want in your mind. Do you know how much unnecessary energy doing all of that repressing and festering takes out of you? It's a lot. Because repressing turns into festering. And festering doesn't just stay festering. It becomes bitterness. And soon you're just consumed with how much that situation sucks, or how unfair it is, or how the other person sucks. And it turns into an overwhelming obsession that I've found I would do anything to escape. But the shortest way through your emotional episodes is to go right through them. And it's hard and it's scary. But the best thing you can do is to acknowledge it the way that you feel and figure out a way to respond to those feelings appropriately. I've learned this the hard way. I went through a situation for a full year where I was working with a person who was continually offending me. But I was so afraid of what would happen if I confronted them about it. I put myself in this weird situation, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I was so upset about offending them by telling them that they were offending me that I just burdened myself with it and never said anything. And I did what any mature adult would do, and I just started grumbling and held grudges and was in general miserable. And it got to a point where I would do anything to avoid interacting with that person. I mean, I was stressed out about just having to see them or interact with them. And it wasn't until I had been in counseling for 5 months. Yay, counseling. Anybody? No? Okay, cool. I was in counseling for 5 months until I was able to gain a different perspective. And perspective is that thing that comes along and says, nope. I knew what I had to do, which was to go to that person and apologize immediately for the way that I had been acting and work persistently on changing my perspective of them. Because they had no idea that they were, A, offending me, and B, doing it so deeply. I never went to them and talked to them about it. So please, if you're festering about something today, will you promise me, you don't have to raise your hand or anything crazy, will you promise me that you will figure out some way to stop festering today and get out of that horrible place? It's not easy, and I'll totally talk to anybody after this if you want to. It's actually really hard. I've learned this stuff over the past 2 years, and a lot of it still makes me feel like a toddler. So this is one thing we do at And Yet, and I know that there are systems of checking in at workplaces all over, but I've never done anything quite like the way we do it. Our friends at Lincoln Loop created a tool called Ginger, which we use on a semi-daily basis to describe how our day went and assign a numerical value from 1 to 10, or whatever is truly appropriate for that day. Sometimes I can put a 10, I think like twice. And sometimes I put a question mark, because I just don't know. I found it to be particularly helpful in staying in touch with our remote workers, for anybody that has those, because I can regularly get synced up with them, and just hearing the stories about their life just brings us closer. It endears me more to them. Some of our teammates have been truly fearless in the honesty about their lives, but it never fails that when honesty is expressed there, it's met with just as intense compassion from other teammates. People will understand what you're going through. This is an example of my own check-in from earlier this week. I have a 7 on Monday. I was feeling very anxious about giving this talk right now. And my awesome teammate, Philip Roberts, responded. He's given talks before, so he had some advice for me. Earlier, I mentioned another teammate encouraging me through my confusion instead of firing me for it. And, you know, a person stepping out and talking to you about your problems like that, it could have made me really angry. And truthfully, I was really embarrassed. But going back to that little person I showed earlier, I looked at my daughter and I looked at my life, and I thought, man, I would not be able to stand it if Mila was 30 years old and had emotional problems like these. So I listened to my teammate, and they pointed out to me that I might be framing things wrong to begin with, and they showed me this book. Reading this book, Positive Intelligence, plus long salesy subtitle. Just ignore the sales title. Just use that energy that you would spend, like, reading the subtitle, and just go to the first page and use your energy there. It's by Shirzad Shamin. Reading this book changed my life. How many people can say that about a book? If you suffer from, a lot of readers. This is awesome. But if you suffer from self-doubt, I would totally recommend this book. And I'm actually going to totally recommend this book for the next minute. Remember how I was describing a bout of self-doubt in terms of questioning the way that I felt to myself? It was actually a lot worse than that. Self-esteem issues and imposter syndrome aside, I was plagued by self-doubt, and reading Positive Intelligence actually helped me learn to identify those thoughts and how to neutralize them. The things I learned from this book completely changed the way I think about myself and how I understand myself. So I will never stop singing its praises. And even if you don't struggle with self-doubt, I would still read this book. It's not a hard read, and you'll be better for it. If you're curious but not enough to read it, I would still go to their website. There's assessments and stuff that I think are definitely worth checking out, but really you should just read this book. I don't get any kickback from saying that either. This is another great book, which Isaac Schluter recommended in both talks he gave at NodeConf EU and Real-Time Conf this year. I definitely encourage you to hear what Isaac has to say about leadership and compassionate communities. In both of his talks, he shares his experience as the lead Node developer and author of NPM. And he introduced to me in his talks, for the very first time, the idea that it could be possible without any magic or coercion to turn negative interactions into positive ones. What? What do you mean I can go from having conflict to having a valuable, positive experience? It just doesn't sound right. Well, remember what I was saying earlier about conflict and emotional napalm? Nonviolent communication is the key to getting out of those situations. The method detailed in NVC gives readers the tools to express and receive from other people how they both are honestly feeling through their observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Here's the structure. When I see this, I feel this because I need this. So could you please this appropriately? Let me give you an example of how this works. Okay, so that's not actually very helpful in a real conflict. That's more addressing my internal conflict. But you get what I mean. If you can use that framework to address a conflict that you're in, I think that you'll be surprised that you'll be able to get through it and actually have a positive experience on the other side. I thought Isaac summarized the intentions of the book fantastically, so I'm just going to quote him because what he said is way better than what I could have said. The reason why nonviolent communication works as well as it does and can powerfully change negative interactions into positive is that it teaches us to be strict in what we send and liberal in what we receive, so as to guide our fellow humans toward positivity. Practicing NVC means that we radically change our focus and limit the messages we send or even allow ourselves to think or respond to. NVC also has a great website which can help break down methods specifically for situations, conflict resolution, workplace interaction, personal growth, or even parenting. So I highly recommend visiting that site too. This is hard to do. All of this is hard to do. I screw it up every day still. But I know that no one is a professional at handling feelings. I still make bad choices with my words and my actions, but I'm a little quicker to apologize, and genuinely, for those mistakes, but they still happen all the time. But as they say, anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly at first. And here's another cliche that's still slightly true-ish. Practice makes perfect. I will slip into my old Jenn ways of self-doubt and passive-aggressive tactics, but I'm able to recognize most of the time when this is happening and take action to change it. I'm here today to tell you that making my emotional health a priority has made my life significantly better in every single area. It's given me better communication skills in general, understanding and empathy for other people, patience, long-term understanding of what my daughter actually needs from me as a human being, as well as the people around me. Whoops. Okay, so now there's going to be a video, but I want to show you the video because I think that it accurately portrays the impact that prioritizing emotional safety can have if you've tuned me out on any of this feeling stuff. So here goes.
In the next few years, we don't know what the world is going to be like, and we want them to be strong. He said, Mrs. Reifler, I don't know what to do with my life. And when I got them together, they both said they had tried to commit suicide. And they're fifth graders.
Where the doors
How do I say it? They just, for being as young as they are, they're almost like some of them have given up on life already.
the stars.
We have no idea. The majority of our children, the majority have very important issues that they are dealing with.
How many of you had breakfast this morning? You did not have breakfast, please stand up.
I mean, where are the parents?
They sent one teacher from every grade level to another school to just observe the school because they had higher test scores than us. And we just noticed that the school was so calm, so we said, what is it about your school? How did you get them to be like that? And she said, oh, it has to do with Mrs. Reifler.
I choose to have a good life.
My husband, Ron, and myself decided to start writing a program for children. Because when we were teaching adults, there was a big empty space in adults.
She came into our classroom, teaching the kids to like themselves and things like that.
If you make good choices, you make good consequences.
It's been a big deal. It's been a big positive change. It's just the tone. It's just her approach to everything. It's like, I want to be like that.
You know, when you think of Harvard and Yale and all those great universities, they need to have the person already made to go there to learn, to achieve just the goal, to be an attorney, to be a doctor. What kind of human being are you going to be? I'm going to work just to get the money so I can eat. Boring. What kind of life is that, do you think?
That's not a good self-manager.
No.
Right? So you're gonna maybe bad. Right?
Yeah, the consequences are bad. You have a bad day, you go home with a bad attitude. How are you going to treat your kids? Do you think they're going to treat their kids nicely?
No.
No, really. So you see how important is what you're doing right now?
When I grow up, I'd like to be an artist, forensic anthropologist,
marine biologist.
I want to be a filmmaker, doctor, an actor, play basketball, fashion designer.
Unless we do something with education, with the total human being, we are not really preparing our children. That sense of security is so incredibly powerful for kids. Because so many of our children don't feel safe at home or in their neighborhoods. So to feel safe in school is so beautiful. To know they won't be put down or hurt. This is my dream, that we do this. Can you imagine if all the schools would feel this way?
If I can't shake myself, I can't die.
I just love what she says about talking about the total person. It's truly amazing the difference that one person can make. How many lives are going to be changed for the better as a result of that teacher's ability to see that the overall needs of those students were not being met. And this just doesn't apply to children. I think that this is for everyone. I know it sounds like I'm getting teary, but it's my voice is going out, you guys. This is how I know that this is for everyone. My most favorite parenting triumph in all of Mila's 5 years and 3-ish months of life happened recently. She told me about an older girl who was teasing her and telling her that she wasn't cute. That's kind of a big deal when you're a little girl. She told me her response to the older girl, and she was proud of it. I don't care what you say. My mom loves me just the way that I am. And that might sound cheesy in the vein of jokes of young, awkward men living at home with their well-meaning mothers. But to me, it signified a change in the way that Mila sees herself. From seeing herself as a shadow of a person, kind of doing the spectator thing, believing undoubtedly exactly what other kids taunted her about, to seeing herself truthfully, valued and loved exactly the way that I see her. And all that it took for her was one person who cares and loves her to encourage her and tell her the truth about herself. And that's the benefit of emotional health right there. If I can learn enough in the past 18 months to put my own child's self-growth into action, then I'm excited for a long future for the both of us. The only thing that I can do to ensure her success is to change myself and give her somebody to look up to. That's all that any of us can do. I could stand up here and list benefit after benefit or quote statistics, but at the end of the day, emotional safety is a personal responsibility. You, yourself, have to be motivated to make it a priority. This tiny human is my motivation to be a better person, to do better, to try harder. So I have to wonder, what will your motivation be? Thank you.